everyone, how's it going? It's that nerd Ryan here, and today we are reviewing the Star Wars book known as, Padawan. It's inverted, so it's weird for me to hold it, but it's by Kirsten White, and it takes place before Episode 1 when Obi-Wan is 16 years old. So Obi-Wan has just become a Padawan, and we get to see his first off-world mission. We'll get into spoilers in a second. But it kind of is a character study of Obi-Wan. It's a 40-chapter book, and basically all 40 chapters are Obi-Wan's perspective. There's some interludes that's the villain's perspective, but we also get some good cameos in here and some good characters. I do have tiny issues throughout the book. Just really one tiny issue, but we'll get to that in the spoiler part of the review. But for those who are just wondering if they should read the book or not, I do recommend it if you're an Obi-Wan fan. I am an Obi-Wan fan. However, I could see some people not being Obi-Wan fans not enjoying this book. So I could completely understand people skipping it over. But we get to see Obi-Wan. Familiar faces that don't spoil anything. We also get to see Qui-Gon and Count Dooku for a moment. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about the book in full now. So obviously we're going to have spoilers. So let's get into it. So the book starts out with Obi-Wan meeting up with his Padawan friends. And that is the first issue that I have first and only issue I have with this book, is we do have a ensemble in this book, not only of the Padawans, but also of the people that he meets on the planet that he goes to, and it's very hard to keep track of every character and what their quirks are and everything like that. That was my only issue with this book, was that there was a ton of characters that some don't show up for many chapters. I mean, we only do see the Padawans for the first 5 chapters, although they are referenced throughout the book. But it still gets confusing, trying to remember which one was kind of like the bully, which one was the nature-loving one, and stuff like that. There's a bunch of characters that are very forgettable in this book. You really only need to focus on about 5 characters that aren't Obi-Wan, and it's the villain named Logrib. It's I probably am pronouncing the right names wrong. Aj, which is kind of like the head of the people that he meets. Her brother Kasul, and Zybri, which is Aj's kind of significant other, kind of second in command character. You also get a bunch of other characters in this, Trill, Whistle, and I forgot the other one, Mem, who I barely remembered until they mentioned that character, and just a bunch of other, like, kind of side characters. Amet, I think, was named one, but it's like hard to remember all these characters in this very, not small as in small pages, but small scale story. Like, Brotherhood had a very good balance of, like, showing all these characters, and you could remember who they are and what their motives are and what their quirks are and stuff like that. This, especially because it's from just one person's perspective, it's hard to remember every character and their motives. But like I said, the important characters are who I listed. Of course, Obi-Wan, Logrib, Kasul, Udj. It's like Audj, so I don't know how to pronounce that. And Zybri, which they are good characters there. Kasul is kind of like I want to say cool guy, but also like he's the type of leader that wants to stick to what they're doing. Aj also wants to be the best leader she can be, but at the same time, she also doesn't know how to truly react to the situation that's going on that we'll get to in a second. And then Logrib is greedy, wanting to take the planet's resources for himself and manipulate the people that live there and stuff like that. And then Zybri is kind of the voice of reason. They actually are the first to side with Obi-Wan when things go on, and they're a changeling, which is pretty cool. I love changelings, they're great characters. But yeah, so basically Obi-Wan is ready for his first mission. He's kind of sick and tired of sitting around meditating all day, and he never feels right meditating. He's sick of like sitting around reading books and stuff like that. So he finds actually a thing in the library designated to a particular planet named Lenara, which is unnamed at the moment, left by a High Republic person that we know, Orla Jarni, and for whatever reason, their research was incomplete. We know the reason if we read the High Republic books. It's because she died during Fallen Star, so she was never able to actually go back and finish anything. But she basically kind of left it up in the air of what Lenara is. So Obi-Wan convinces Qui-Gon that the Force told him to go there, even though he just wanted to get out. So Qui-Gon says, yeah, we'll go. We're not going to tell the Council. Meet me in the docking bay tomorrow at like 11 o'clock or whatever. So Obi-Wan shows up, and Qui-Gon doesn't. And he's waiting, and Qui-Gon's still not there. Waits a little longer, Qui-Gon's still not there. So Obi-Wan gets upset and leaves on his own. I was kind of disappointed at that. I always loved more Qui-Gon Jinn. I wish this book was kind of a Obi-Wan Qui-Gon story, but that's what we got Master and Apprentice for, so that's completely fine. And then he gets to this like halfway point and he picks up a beacon. The beacon then triggers and sends out to Logrib on how to basically get back to this planet. And then he shows up at the planet where the asteroid field is chaotic depending on his calmness, which is the first strange thing to notice about Lenara. Lenara is basically force sensitive, I want to say, but it's not. It's very symbiotic in itself, and we'll get to how that works later on, but right now all we know is that the asteroid field is kind of acting wonky. So Obi-Wan lands, and he meets this random girl, which ends up being Oj. And she and this other person, which ends up being Zybri, who's in disguise at the moment, end up stealing Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and he has to chase after them. And even him using the Force, they're outmatching him. And basically they start talking about, like, they finally catch up and they start talking and everything, and it turns out they have this thing called the Power, which is basically, from this point, avid readers understand as just somebody else's interpretation of the Force, because there's many different interpretations of the Force. And they're talking and everything, they decide to live there, and realizes that, or Obi-Wan decides to stay there, as they realize that the planet itself likes to attack its inhabitants. There's really no explanation at this point. There is later on, but he's trying to figure out why the planet attacks these people and why they have to live in a old ship that's high above the ground so they don't have to get attacked by gobblers, avalanches, and the planet itself. So as they're kind of like figuring out things and everything, kind of is a Lord of the Flies situation. There's no adults there. It tends to happen that the adults die off early on this planet for some reason, and the Lenarans are not originated from Lenara, as in we have different species like changelings and stuff like that the families moved there, and then some families moved out, but the parents stayed, and the parents died most likely in their late 20s, early 30s. and left these kids to have to fend for themselves and raise the younger younglings and everything like that. At one point, they ask Obi-Wan if he wants to come with them to the harvest, and that's when we start realizing what's going on. So the planet has these orbs, and the orbs are basically the lifeblood of the planet, and when they're consumed, the person that consumes it basically gets the power of the Force. It's not entirely Force sensitivity, but like they can jump, run, and actually kind of get super strength from what I understand from the ending or the climax or whatever you want to call it. And when that happens, Obi-Wan kind of like gets a Force feeling that they're basically killing the planet doing this. And the planet is reacting by attacking the people that are consuming its lifeblood. So it's a very symbiotic planet and everything. During that happening, Obi-Wan kind of tries to stop them, and as they're arguing, their uncle, or the Adge's and Kasul's uncle Logrib lands. And we also get Dexter Jester on there. That's Dexter's first time meeting Obi-Wan. And they basically go and he's kind of saying, "Oh, I'm here to save you. I just got to pick up and mine some stuff, and then we'll go." And you could tell even at that point that Logrib's full of crap. And during that, Obi-Wan kind of has a falling out with the group to where he decides to finally try to meditate. And he successfully does so, and he connects with the planet and completely understands that it's a symbiotic bond, and it also matches the emotions of the people there. So if you are aggressive towards the planet will be aggressive towards you. If you are nervous, the planet will react nervously and stuff like that. So Adge comes down to kind of like insult him more, I believe, and notices that like all the life around Obi-Wan is calm. And there she realizes that, okay, maybe we shouldn't be consuming this power. At that, they go to kind of confront everybody, and Kasul gets upset and leaves to tell Logrib. And I forgot to also mention that Obi-Wan almost gets murdered by Logrib. He leaves basically what's called an altitude bomb on his ship. So if Obi-Wan were to go a certain altitude, the bomb would blow up. But yeah, so anyways, with all that, they finally try to confront Logrib, who Kasul went and told. And in that, Logrib completely betrays everybody. And as Obi-Wan saves everybody, Logrib runs into the cave and consumes all the power that he can to kind of retaliate, because he believes it's his birthright, where he ends up fighting Obi-Wan by throwing giant rocks at him. This felt like a video game scene, in all honesty. It felt like it was a complete video game like moment. In that, Obi-Wan wins, obviously, and everybody has to leave Lenara, since the planet is kind of imploding on itself and not allowing outsiders. And at that, Obi-Wan comes back. This whole time, he was debating about staying with the Lenarans or going back to the temple. He felt like he never belonged. But once he meditated and connected with the planet, he realized that he did. Although he was afraid that he was going to get in trouble. And Qui-Gon kind of dusts it under the rug at the end. And that's how the book ends. So I really did like this book. Like I said, I'm an Obi-Wan fan. So I do want to give it like a 8 out of 10. I thought it was pretty good. Just the only issue is like a lot of the like minor characters were not as memorable as most Star Wars books. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell. Follow me on all my social media down below. I'll be back next year with the review of Shadows of the Sith. So yeah, it's that nerd Ryan, signing off.